Penal Battalion, so Ukraine is releasing thousands of prisoners so they can join the fight against Russia. If you remember, the Russians used prisoners in the Wagner group. The thing about the prisoners is they're gonna probably want freedom after that, and they are not soldiers, so theoretically they would have to be hired. They would get hired and get paid. Or maybe they would just have to be registered as mercenaries. I'm not quite sure how it works in Ukraine. However, I would assume they would be released afterwards. And if you watch some news from Russia, then you probably know how this goes out. Like, there were a lot of instances when the released prisoner just went back to his former city and murdered some people. So that was, that a lot of people died from these released lunatics. And the prisoners' morale is probably not the best also. I think they are definitely much more easier to be destroyed. Not like Witcher, like killed everyone to death, but destroyed that they would be shattered and just dispersed from their positions. Dnipropetrovsk region, at the rural penal colony in southeast Ukraine, several convicts stand assembled under barbed wire to hear an army recruiter offer them a shot at parole. In return, they must join the grueling fight against Russia. You can put an end to this and start a new life, said the recruiter, a member of a volunteer assault battalion. The main thing is your will, because you are going to defend the motherland. You won't succeed at 50%, you have to give 100% of yourself, or even 150%. Ukraine is expanding the draft to cope with acute battlefield shortages for more than 2 years into fighting against Russia's full-scale invasion, and its recruiting efforts have turned for the first time to the country's present population. Although Ukraine does not announce any details of troop deployments, numbers, or casualties, frontline commanders openly acknowledge that they are facing serious manpower problems as Russia continues to build up forces in eastern Ukraine and make incremental gains westwards. I'm not quite sure if you hear the dog in the background. No, he's pretty goddamn loud. It's not my dog, it's the neighbor's dog. But yeah, he's pretty loud. Hopefully you do not hear it. Yeah, Ukraine does not announce the number of the casualties. I remember they show some numbers, however, I think those are PR numbers, and they are trying to make it look that they are winning decisively, which is simply not true. Like, if you hear those commanders saying that they have problems with manpower, then you can bring 2 and 2 together. Like, they've been at war for 2 years now, and they claim to have like 30,000 casualties. Considering all that bombardment that Russians do with all that ammunition, quite unlikely. Even though the Russian artillery ammunition might not be the most accurate, it will still hit the targets once in a while. More than 3,000 prisoners already have been released on parole and assigned to military units, after such recruitment was approved by Parliament in controversial mobilization bill last month. Ukrainian Deputy Justice Minister Olena Vysochka told the Associated Press about 27,000 inmates could potentially be eligible for the new program, according to the Justice Ministry estimates. A lot of motivation comes from inmates wanting to return home as a hero and not to return home from prison. Vysochka said, no, just no. This is the worst. You were sentenced to prison for something. Well, Ukraine is corrupt, we know that. However, from the 27,000 people, how many of them you think were unfairly, convicted? Yeah. And a lot of the people who were convicted for a reason will come back. A lot, well, is a operative numbers. A lot of them will die on the front lines, obviously, but some of them will. And of course, they will have scars from the battlefield. So, do you think they will not do anything radical? Something rash? Yeah. I definitely am very sorry for anyone who will have to share place with them in village or house or anything like that. Ernest Wolbach, 27 years old, wants to take up the offer. He's serving a 2-year sentence for robbery at the penal colony in the Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region. He works in the kitchen, lathering dollops of food into tin bowls. It's stupid to sit here doing nothing, Wolbach said, adding that since the start of the war, he's wanted to do something for Ukraine and have the opportunity to enlist. And now it's appeared. Ukrainian soldiers on active duty are typically identified only by their first name or call sign. For security reasons, many of the inmates at Dnipropetrovsk penal colony also asked to be identified only by their first names to avoid difficulties if they enlist. Another inmate, 30 years old, who gave his name only as Volodymyr, makes service at the penal colony workshop. He said he plans to volunteer after his sentence ends in 1 year, but wouldn't do so now because there's effectively no home leave under the parole program. Okay, so they would be returned to the prison then? Okay. Prisoners can get conditional release after an interview, medical exam and review of their convictions. Those convicted of eye-warding, sexual assault, murdering 2 or more people, or crimes against Ukraine's national security aren't eligible, okay? Yeah, that makes sense, because those people would be a nightmare of a PR for the Ukrainian government, especially now when there's a lot of people who are already skeptical about sending money to the EU. So I mean, if some videos would come to life of these prisoners doing a something war crimes, then yeah, this could cause a lot of damage to the Ukrainian support. Ukrainian officials are keen to draw a distinction between their program and recruitment in Russia of convicts to serve in the notorious Wagner mercenary group. Those fighters typically have been funneled to the deadliest battles, the official said, but the Ukrainian program aims to integrate the inmates into the regular Ukrainian frontline units. I believe the former Wagner guys are nowadays also integrated in the Russian forces, or are the regulars of the Russian forces, since the death of Prigozhin and all of the Wagner leadership. Yes, the Wagner company sent those prisoners to the toughest battles. On one way, it was done because simply the Russian government did not want Russian soldiers to die there. You know, the Russian soldiers who were not very problematic and stuff. But they do not want to ever hide talk, because people would not be taking it too lightly. So, I mean, but if prisoner dies there, well, he was in prison for something, huh? The country has a prison population of some 42,000 according to figures forwarded by the government to the European Union. While recent reforms have reduced the numbers of prisoners and are credited with improving conditions at some facilities, the US State Department noted credible reports of degrading treatment or punishment by prison authorities in its annual report on human rights last year. The United States, the nation with the largest prison population ever, if I remember correctly, is telling us about human rights, about the degrading treatment or punishment. Very interesting, America. I'd say you should mind your own business, but hey, to each his own. It's easier to criticize than to solve problems, am I right? While recent reforms after screening, paroled mates are rushed to basic training at camps, where they learn how to handle weapons and other combat fundamentals. Training is completed later once they join the individual units. Parod in Melt Mikhailo joined an assault course and said it was hard to keep up with the physical demands after months of relative inactivity in prison. Clambering in and out of armed personnel carriers and running throughout obstacle courses. I decided to sign up for the Ukrainian volunteer army because I have a family at home, children, parents, the 29-year-old said, speaking over the noise of gunfire at a shooting range. I will be more useful in the war. Vysochka, the deputy of Justice Minister, said interest in the military parole program has exceeded our expectation and that it could provide as many as 5,000 new recruits. That would definitely help, she said. Gatopoulos reported from Kiev, Volodymyr Yurchuk in the Dnipropetrovsk region, and Dmitro Zhinias in Kiev contributed to this report. Once again, AP News. So quick on detail. Those are two articles from AP News that were just taken to the quick on detail. Pretty lame, but whatever. Yes, the prisoners as a conscripts. I'm against it generally because it sort of shows the desperation the Ukraine is in, and it's going to be very interesting to watch just how the new conscription law is going to do. They lowered the age of conscription years by 2, I remember. So this should provide them with some additional manpower. However, people forget that the Ukraine cannot just lower the requirements forever, because it is already having an impact on the economy. And the more they become lenient for those conscription or strict, maybe? No, lenient for the conscription requirements, the more and more the economy is going to suffer, because they're going to be requiring more and more working people to join, which will in other way is going to hurt the economy. Obviously, this is going to happen on the other side. However, the Russians, as I said before, are exploiting the African countries for their natural resources, so they have a source of income of their own. The war still seems to be going strong, and it would seem like a stalemate to the untrained eye. However, a lot of stuff is happening on the front lines, okay? Just because the front line isn't moving much doesn't mean there's little action. There's a lot of action going in. And every little skirmish that happens on these front lines is crucial. Because if the Ukrainians do a tiny mistake, just like they did near the Ocherdine, I believe was the name. I'm actually going to even look it up for you. Oh, a flag and a lot of birds. Power outages, I see. Oh, that's Bakhmut. Oh, here. Oh, there. Yeah, Ocherdine. So here. Just a tiny mistake, tiny miscommunication in the battalions or the squadrons, the platoons of the Ukrainian armies somewhere around here caused this. They caused this massive this massive breakthrough of the Russian army. Once again, it might not look like a lot. However, you have to remember, that was a tiny mistake that caused all of this. Like, they were somewhat containing it nearby the sheet when this happened. Like, they were containing it somewhat here. Then it happened, and you just had them bursting into Ocherdine. From tiny communication mistake. You have to understand just how many skirmishes are happening there every day. And if such mistakes were happening more frequently, then this front line would start moving massively in favor of the Russians. So just because it's not moving doesn't mean it's boring. No, it is very crucial for every single Ukrainian squad to perform to the most expectance and to the brilliance. Otherwise, every tiny mistake can bring about the collapse of an entire front. The war is not easy, and you should not listen to some morons on the internet covering it, especially on sites like Twitter. And most definitely not on Reddit. I usually watch History Legends. He seems to have pretty damn good actual understanding of the conflict. So, hey, you might give it a shot. He seems to be also quite unbiased, in my opinion. Okay, what happened here? Russian Ministry of Defense going full occupation of Stepova Novoselivka village in Kharkiv region of Ukraine. Or Stepova or Stepova, not quite sure which one of it is. And even it seems to got contained here. But again, tiny mistake anywhere, and this entire thing will fall to the Russians. And that's same on the Russian side, obviously. However, for the Ukraine, it's much more crucial because they simply do not have enough manpower to contain it. So yeah, war is not easy. This is not boring. There's a lot of skirmishes happening pretty much every day. Just because the front line is not moving doesn't mean it's not moving. It's moving little by little, meter by meter. And everyone is doing their absolute best to make sure that there is no mistake like that happened near Ocheretine. This is a reminder to those moron analysts at Reddit that, yeah, this is a war. One tiny mistake, and look at the disaster. Like, this is a disaster. Of course, they will say, but hey, that's not that important. No, this is important. Like, every little piece of territory that is gained by the Russian brings it closer and closer to achieving its goal. So yeah, that's about enough of the talk about the war. You can always watch the liveuamap.com. Pretty interesting. So yeah, I mean, as I said, do not listen to Reddit experts. Where's Grinky? I still do not understand why the Ukrainians hold Grinky. Somebody might explain it to me in the comments. I do not understand the value of Grinky. I definitely would like to get it explained. For me, it seems like a waste of resources and that could be used elsewhere. Since Russians have the numeral advantage, those men who are there could be used in any other front as an elite units maybe, because I would assume they use some sort of marines. Oh, this is Mongolia. Moving on to the Twitter Bazaar.